Thank you very much. Very good evening to you all, and welcome to this meeting for Housing and Communities Select Committee meeting. My name is Councillor Kasim Ali. I'm the chair of the Housing and Communities Select Committee. This meeting is being held in accordance with the government regulations of holding virtual meetings. Please do bear with us if we run into technical challenges during this meeting. This meeting is also being held via Microsoft Teams live conferencing. So all the committee members, councillors, council officers, and parties who wish to participate at this meeting and to hear are joining us from remote locations. This event is being streamed live on YouTube, and members of the public and the media are welcome to watch remotely and listen to the discussion as it's taking place. I would also like to welcome the first-time viewers for the Housing and Communities Select Committee. I'm sure you will benefit from this meeting, and hopefully you will be able to participate in the future meetings. Before we start this meeting, I would like to start with 72 seconds of silence to remember those we have lost in the Grenfell tragedy. We know the COVID-19 period, it's a tough time, it's a crisis, but it's for the whole country. However, Grenfell issue and Grenfell disaster and Grenfell tragedy is particular for our borough, and it's a disaster that those we've lost, we will never ever forget them. So please join me to remember them and respect them for 72 seconds silence, and starts now.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Before we proceed, I would like to ask members of the committee to mute their microphones and unmute only themselves when they are addressing the meeting. Once they are done so, they should mute themselves again. Likewise, to save the bandwidth, I would ask the councillors only to switch on their cameras when they are speaking and switch off after they finish speaking. If a councillor wishes to speak in a particular item on the agenda that's not been called to speak, so please indicate by typing the letter Q in the conversation column. But I would also like to tell you that the conversation column, that you not use anything else for the conversation column, because it will be retained and it's going to be on the public. At the same time, to assist the fellow councillors, officers, and members of the public watching online, please do identify yourself and the organization that you are representing today or this evening. If for any reasons that my connection drops out, I would like to nominate Councillor Greg Hammond, my vice chair, to immediately take over from this meeting. If unlike the unlikely event that both I and my vice chair, Councillor Greg Hammond, is also not available, I would like Councillor Mo Bakhtiar to chair this meeting. And now we are going through the attendance and the declaration of interest. I do start with myself. I am here, of course, as you can see, and I have nothing to declare this evening. I would, however, start with Councillor Hamish Adorian. If you please confirm your presence and if you have any interest to declare.
Thank you, Chair. It's Councillor Hamish Adorian. Chair, yes, I would like to note that I've been very recently asked by the lead member for communities, Councillor Siren, to work with her on a project relating to the voluntary sector and the council's overall relationship with the voluntary sector in RBKC, which I've been pleased to accept and look forward to working with her on this important area. Now, I should mention that although I haven't been involved in any of the matters we are scrutinising this evening, given that there is that new relationship there, I think it would be appropriate for me to withdraw as a participant in the rest of the meeting, particularly as the council voluntary sector relationship is likely to feature in some of the discussion. So I'd just like to note that, and I look forward to observing the meeting with your permission.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hamza for declaring that interest. We will hopefully have you back if there is any other way that you can contribute when it comes to the housing. And now I call for Councillor Mohammed Bakhtiar.
Present, Chair, nothing to declare. Thank you.
Thank you. I call for Councillor Tom Bennett.
Yep, present, Chair, and nothing to declare.
Thank you. Now call for Councillor Robert Freeman.
Present, Chairman, and no declarations.
Thank you. Councillor Greg Hammond.
Yes, I'm here, Chair, and nothing to declare.
Thank you. And finally, last but not the least, Councillor Dory Ismatling.
He's here and he has nothing to declare, and his picture should still be up.
Thank you.
His image, moving image.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Councillor. Now we're moving to the A1. We have already done A1, but it's for formalities. We know we have no absent recorded, so we have every councillor attending. So be it one councillor has declared interest and will be observing the meeting rather than participating. So, and we've also done A2, declaration of interest. Now we go to the minutes, and this is an opportunity for me to thank Vice Chair for the Select Committee, Councillor Greg Hammond, for picking up last minute after I fall with COVID-19 last now almost 2 months ago. And the minutes, if I would appreciate if he can propose the minutes and take over for this second to say about something relating to the minutes. And once again, Greg, thank you for chairing the meeting while I couldn't do due to COVID-19, which I am and my family have, pleased to say, fully recovered from.
Thank you, Chair, and we're all pleased to see you back and looking healthy and fit again. So welcome back. Yes, I've reviewed the minutes for the 7th of December. I'm personally happy with them, but I look to the rest of the committee to intervene if there are any corrections you wish to make before we sign them off and agree them virtually. So I'll just pause for a moment to see if anybody wishes to intervene. And they don't, so I think we'll take the minutes of the last meeting as agreed. Thank you. Thanks, Chair. Back to you.
Thank you, Greg, for that. Now we are going to A4 of the Select Committee working agenda, and this work Select Committee working work program, if I should say, the work program have started back in when we have been given the opportunity to get involved. Of course, this Select Committee has been in the making since May, since we've been elected to our current positions. But because of the COVID-19 and what's been happening, we have finally decided the 24th of September. That was when we agreed the work committee, the work program. So this work program, this municipality year will be 2020 and 2021 will be ending on May. And I wish if we can, just before we ask the current working committee members, just want to remind the Select Committee members and the members of the public and the media who are today with us, to remind the 4 areas that we have decided to work on this municipal year. So the beginning is the housing is communities, number 1. And within communities, we also, of course, checking the COVID-19 response. It was meant to be COVID-19 recovery, but now we are in the 3rd lockdown. We have been changing that and adapting to the current crisis, and we are working on communities, specifically on working group and also checking the COVID-19 response rather than recovery. Hopefully the next committee in 2021-2022 will pick up on the recovery side. So the communities is number 1. housing and management, including illegal subletting and antisocial behavior, is number 2, and the housing repairs, 3, and finally housing safety and health homes is our number 4 bullet point that we have been working on and have agreed. And now we'd like to welcome the Vice Chair and the Chair of the Working Group for Healthy Homes. Greg, is there anything you would like to add on the working program or working group that you have been chairing since we have set up this working committee?
Well, thanks, Chair. Just very briefly, because there is an update in the papers written by officers. But most recently, as a working group, we held a joint private meeting with the Environment Select Committee to discuss the Council's 2030 carbon neutral target and what, for us, this might mean for the Council's housing stock. And that might lead to a public meeting in due course. But that meeting that we held with Environment was an education meeting for us to find out a bit more about the subject. When we last met as a select committee, we had a call for evidence out live to find out from residents what they thought made them feel either unsafe or unhealthy at home. When it closed, we had 43 responses, and they were broadly proportional to the types of tenure in the borough. The working group members met last month to analyse the trends highlighted and review other documentary sources that Ryan had very helpfully provided for us. And where does that lead to? It leads us to this Friday afternoon's online conference, which we're holding with housing associations and the council. We've currently got 8 out of the 11 housing associations who have properties in RBKC have accepted the invitation. We'll be hoping that the other 3 turn up as well, but at the moment it's 8. And we'll be taking the chance to put to them and to the council the main points that the residents raised with us in the call for evidence. And we'll ask a number of questions based around what we've heard to get the debate started, and then we'll give any other councillors who choose to attend on Friday afternoon, and very importantly, members of the public, a chance to put their points to the panel. So everybody is welcome this Friday afternoon, and it has been advertised on social media, and I'm sure if anybody hasn't heard about it, the officers can provide some details.
Thank you.
So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. And Councillor Doris Schmatling, the chair of the working group for COVID-19, was meant to be COVID-19 recovery, but now slowly working on COVID-19 response. Any other comments you would like to add to what Councillor Greg Hammond said about his working group?
No, it's fine. And also from this point of view, from the COVID-19, we were started looking at the recovery, but well, things changed rather, so we'll have a fuller report of what we're doing at the next occasion.
Thank you. And again, this is a working group that we would appreciate if members can contribute more, and if there are other backbench councillors willing to work with Councillor Doris Schmatling on this, and hopefully we will have 1 or 2, if possible, members of the public to work with us on this working group, because COVID-19 response is a huge task, and we cannot do without you getting involved and support. So hopefully we will have more councillors joining Councillor Doris Schmatling on this, and I will certainly contribute with the next 10 to 12 weeks to make sure we'll be able to get the working group going. On that note, I would like, before I go into the item number 5, which is a COVID-19 response addressing the food insecurity of the borough, I just want to let the members of the public and the working group, the selection committee, to know that we will be concentrating this item number A5 and A6, and it will be the formality of doing it will be the selection committee asking questions where necessary. And then once we are done with A5 and A6 for the selection committee members as well as the backbench councillors, we will be able to go back to these items and then open the platform to the current food bank leaders who are with us this evening. And I would appreciate if they can wait with us, if you can bear with us while we are going through the select committee members first and the backbench councillors. And once we finish these two items, we will open the platform for the. We have about 11 food bank leaders this evening, and they will be having each, if necessary, for those who wish to speak, up to 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes to summarize their activities, and then we'll be able to ask the questions relevant to questions to either A5 or A6 report. You will have opportunity to ask. So if we don't give you the opportunity the first go, please bear with us, because we have to go through this way of scrutinizing. So if now I would like to call Councillor Ansaran, the lead member for communities, to introduce the COVID-19 response addressing the food insecurity of the borough.
Well, thank you, Chair, and good evening to you and to the whole committee, and also to our guests tonight. So this first paper focuses on our council approach to addressing food needs since the start of the pandemic. The report maps out the increased needs, so we can clearly see that the situation has changed quite dramatically in our borough during the last year since the pandemic started. And the paper also maps out the increase in food outlets and food banks, many of which you will see are new. They did not exist before. And I would like to really acknowledge and thank all of our community members, our organisations within the borough, all of our volunteers who have stepped up to support their communities. And you will see that the number of providers that we now have in the borough are listed out in the report. So the council do not run food banks, but what we have tried to do since the beginning is provide support for food banks, for food outlets, for food providers, and much of this support is described in the report. And I would say that each of these organisations, these outlets, these groups that you see here really have different needs. And I think our support has grown over time and changed. I think really very much in the beginning, it was about a food donation. So we did make that, and we've talked about that before at this meeting. But I think our support has become much more targeted as we've got to know these food outlets, these food providers, and ranges from actual food donation to coordination with the voluntary community sector. The coordination is really important, I think, and I welcome discussion on this, because really what we're doing as a council is there are two big food providers in London, City Harvest, and they basically take all of the food that is left over, and they redistribute it to food organisations. And the council have really played quite an important role in making sure that food gets to the right outlets. And we've also provided hardware, so fridges and packaging and other items that are required for these food banks and food providers to function. And we do continue to make food donations through key staples such as eggs and milk. So we also touch on the winter food provision in this paper and how we've used this money to support some of our voluntary partners to deliver food. And this is a government initiative that was announced before Christmas, really to provide funding for free school meals. And we were able to use this support to provide additional help with food generally. And actually, we were really proud to work with some of our voluntary organisation partners with the big Christmas initiative, which was Christmas in a Box, but also to provide support for some of the food providers that are listed here with that whole Christmas support, because it's a difficult time. Several of these outlets were actually shut over Christmas, and we just wanted to make sure that if people were in need, they were able to access, food. Also, what we have in here described in the paper is the shopping offer. And again, this is something that has really changed and evolved over time, over the last year. And again, we've collaborated with some of our VCS organisations to provide this shopping service for self-isolating residents without access to support networks. And importantly, this is a service for residents who can afford food, but do not have the ability to get it. So I would say, I guess in summary, I mean, this really is an evolving support. And, we have officers kind of dedicated to keeping the lines of communications open with the food banks and our food partners to make sure that our offer is strong and it's fit for purpose and it's able to cater for all of our residents, regardless of their background and their characteristics and their changing needs. So, I mean, I think, we can tell a story about some of these food banks that have come into existence because of the changing need of residents in their area. And I think really COVID has done that. It's affected different communities in different ways. People who've never really needed this kind of support now find themselves in situations where they do need that support. Another conclusion that we come in this paper and we can talk about as well is about a long-term solution rather than reactive working. So we really do need a long-term, I think COVID has shown us that we need a long-term plan really to address food insecurity. So a proper strategy for how this will all evolve as we start to come out of lockdown, as hopefully restrictions ease. The problem will not go away. And I think there is going to be a real need within our council to be able to understand that, work with it and have a long-term plan for understanding food insecurity, but also really figuring out how we address it, not just through food support, but really trying to get to the nub of why people find themselves with food insecurity. So that really is a piece of work for the future as hopefully we start to come out of our current situation. But that, I think, is a summary of what we've tried to cover in this paper. And I really thank you for giving us the opportunity to bring this tonight. It's obviously, such an important issue for many of our residents. And I really do welcome the discussion and questions from all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Siren, the lead member for communities. And thank you for taking the time, of course, to come to this evening and hopefully take comments back with you to the cabinet, to the leadership team, or to work with your officers. Just to summarize what the paper that the bit of the paper that you've mentioned, and that RBKC does not have a food bank or does not run a food bank on its own, but supports the food bank. Food bankers in the borough, which is to say that you can work with other other supporters or other the two main food bank providers in London, and to make sure that supplies are delivered to the local food bankers, since the RBKC its own does not run a food bank or council managed a food bank. And again, to meet the evolving support and to changing needs of our residents via the food banks. And most importantly, you've mentioned that COVID-19 related food insecurity, and I think that is something we all need to, in the long term, to think about how and where we are now and where we go from here. And for your last point, in fact, it was the long-term plan, and that is in fact where I want to ask you about the question. On the long-term plan, you've mentioned on 4.3 the partnership. You've mentioned the partnership that broadly agreed in the long term to support. I wish to know if you have a strategy in mind to work with not just the food bank leaders in the borough, but also the government, and to ask support the government, and to increase, and in fact, if necessary, to think about why the need for food and food insecurity has been exacerbated and why we're here. And just to add to that, 3.1. You've mentioned the winter food provision by the government, and the figure that in the report has been mentioned is £421,000 so far being provided as a grant to the borough. So could you perhaps go back to the government and let them know that food banks in RBKC, one of the wealthiest in the borough and one of the wealthiest in London and in the country, has now doubled, if not tripled. Probably people talked about 7 or 9 or 8 but now we have almost 23. And perhaps if we think about the neighboring food banks that actually supply within our borough, we could say tripled the number. Would you go back to the government and support and ask for more support and to deal with this is a national crisis rather than RBKC crisis? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Chair. And you're absolutely right to focus on the winter food provision. I mean, this is, again, I mean, this is a cross-portfolio, I guess, funding that the government made available. It was really for free school meals. But obviously, as you can see from the amount of it, it was also extended to provide food support beyond just those children that were on free school meals. This funding was made available until April. So we still have funds within the council, which will be distributed both for free school meal children during, school holidays. And also, we still have money left over for some of these other organisations that are providing food. So I guess the answer to your question is, I think we are willing and able to go and ask for extra support. But right now, we have been provided with the immediate support that we need for the current situation. I think we certainly have to have a long-term strategy, because at the moment, even though I think we have a much clearer plan about and a more bespoke plan for how we support food providers than we had, a year ago or 9 months ago when we first started this. We still don't know exactly how things are going to evolve. I mean, we certainly don't think that things are going to get back to normal. But I think we need to continue to monitor and see how things evolve. We need to work on a long-term strategy, which I'm sure will come back to this committee at some point. And if that long-term strategy shows us that we need to ask for further support beyond the support that we've already received, then I'm sure we will be open to doing that. But right now, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what we'd be asking for, because I feel that we have been provided that support until April. So I'm not trying to evade the question, but at the moment we have it. So I'm not sure we need to go back right now and ask for more.
Thank you. To clarify my point, I think, do you think that we will be food security will be ending after April?
No. I said very clearly it won't be, and it will take years, I would imagine, for the recovery, particularly in this area, to take place. All I'm saying is I'm not sure we know what the need is right now. And I guess the part of the long-term planning is going to be to try and identify that. So I think once we know what that is, then of course we will be able to ask for support if required. But at the moment, we're responding, we have funding. And, I feel that the food banks are supported.
Thank you. And I think that the food banks are supported, hopefully to the standard they are happy with it. Hopefully the food bank leaders that we have this evening will be able to say what they think and hopefully the support that they will be getting from the borough and from the government. And you've mentioned the support that the food bank and the government has been supported. We are grateful to the government's support. To not just RBKC but to the whole country. But one man has to be remembered for taking that lead, to whether it's families with the children. And I think and I'm sure we all know I'm referring to the footballer Marcus Rashford for really campaigning to support the food banks, and he's been active in that field. So I wish to thank him for what he has done, for not just for his area in Manchester, but also for the whole country. And I'm sure he will be continuing for the good work, despite the vile racism he has received. We are proud of what he has done, and I wish him all the best, and hopefully to continue supporting the food banks, and to the point where we will not require this country, one of the richest in the world, will not require having food banks. So thanks to him and to everyone who's been contributing. Councillor Greg Hammond, you wish to ask a question? You have your hands up.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll echo your support for Marcus Rashford, who has been an amazing campaigner on this issue. And also thank you, Anne, for your paper this evening. My question will have a linkage, I think, with the other paper as well, but I'll ask it now, and you can either take it now or answer it later on. But I think a lot of amazing volunteers have stepped forward in the last year to help deliver the various programmes listed during this time of national emergency, including on the food banks. But to what extent can we be assured that those residents who are referred to the services, and many of whom will be vulnerable, are only referred to service providers whose volunteers have had a degree of vetting? Or to put it another way, how much, if any, divergence from normal safeguarding standards is justifiable because we're dealing with a national emergency?
So just to clarify your question, Greg, and thank you, and it's a really important question, really important because, we have seen the rise of a lot of neighbourhood groups, which we absolutely welcome, but it does raise the issue of safeguarding. Are you asking about delivery of food, or, where's your concern about the volunteers? Because if a resident is vulnerable, I suppose I'd probably get one of the officers to really talk through the process of how a vulnerable resident will come to us and how they will get support. But if there is a referral to the council, there won't be a volunteer who isn't fully safeguarded and been through the volunteer centre if that is appropriate.
I think that was probably the answer to my question, because of course most people who come forward, whether they come forward to a council or formal system or in a neighbourhood group, are going to be amazing and there's not going to be a problem. But we all know there are a handful of bad apples out there. And the council has no control over the neighbourhood groups. I totally accept that. But of course the council, where it is involved in referring services, probably needs a degree of assurance that it's only using people who have been vetted if it's going to maintain normal safeguarding standards. And I think if I heard you correctly, Anne, you were answering that everybody that the council uses to provide services that are directly referred by the council do have a degree of vetting.
They absolutely do. They would go through, if an organisation was using volunteers, they would go through the volunteer centre and they would be properly vetted and safeguarded and trained. I wonder, Greg, whether it would be worth just calling in one of the officers to talk through this process of the safeguarding.
I think it would. I think it'd be very helpful to hear that as a matter of assurance to me and the committee, and also to members of the public who are listening.
Can I call on Chair? Would it be okay to call one of the officers to talk through that process of how residents are referred in through the hub the food providers? Can I ask if Tunde or one of the other officers is able to comment on this, please?
Sure. Pleased to meet you, Chair and the Select Committee. I'm Tunde Olayinka. I'm the Director for Communities. This was a question that came up really early on at the beginning of our response, and we wanted to balance it with that we really want to encourage neighbourly group volunteering. It was great that I think the Volunteer Centre, as it says in the report, registered about 1,000 volunteers, and that was just a real testament to the community spirit that we've got in Kensington and Chelsea, which is quite unique. So we set a policy at the beginning that we signpost as opposed to refer. So if someone called our hub and was in need of a volunteer service, fetching, shopping, dog walking, it could be anything like that. We, depending on whether we saw them as vulnerable or not, would depend on our response. So we signpost people, and by signposting, the definition is we raise awareness. There's groups out there. But we certainly, if someone was vulnerable, either they were clinically vulnerable, as in part of the government's clinical vulnerable scheme, if they were known to our services, we never signpost to neighbourly groups. That's when we use our own services. And on top of that, we also worked really closely with the neighbourly groups. There's a weekly I think it's no longer weekly, but there was a weekly meeting with volunteers where we helped to fast track their DBS checks. So we used our resources from HR to ensure that the neighbourly groups that are out there, even though we weren't as a policy referring into them, they certainly were fast tracked in their DBS so that they can be as secure and safe. And our partnership, we can have a bit of confidence in our partnership.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. May I call Councillor Mohammed Bakhtiar, please?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Anne, and I would like to thank all the food bank volunteers and managers through you yourself, and thanks for the good work. Councillor Ali and the rest of North Kensington councillors, before the lockdown, we were volunteering in the summer and before, delivering food, collecting, signposting people, referring people to the food banks, cooking for the communities, like most of you. I have realized two points. We have, most of you might agree with me, we need to differentiate between two groups. Those who are vulnerable, who need immediate help, and those who have families with younger children, some of them on benefit or some of them lost their jobs due to COVID. They need might be different, I think. Seeing people queuing in front of food bank was a painful experience to myself. And I am sure many people feeling the same thing. We need to have a strategy. We know this situation for sure is going to continue for years to come. We need to have a strategy where we could offer immediate help to those who are vulnerable. They don't have anyone to look after them, delivering to food, whatever they need. But between those who cannot afford, instead of asking them to refer them and ask them to go to the food banks, we need to have a fairer and better system and to save their dignity, giving them extra cash, 20, 30, 40 pounds a week, so they can spend buy more grocery, fresh fruit and vegetable. We need to think about this seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, Mo. Councillor Saran.
Well, I think that's absolutely right, and I think that is what our long-term food insecurity strategy is really going to take into account, because food banks really, I mean, clearly this is not the situation now, but they should really be an emergency measure, and really then residents shouldn't rely on food banks for long periods of time. Now, I think they have been, given the situation, and it's so uncertain and so changeable. But when restrictions start to lift, then I don't think we can have a situation where, residents will be going to food banks on a long-term basis. We have to really deal with the underlying issues, as Councillor Bakhtiar has talked about, and really have a strategy on how we can support those residents, and whether it's cash or whether it's retraining or whatever it's going to happen to be, and that's very much part of the plan for what we need to do moving forward. But we're not there yet. I mean, we're still in the middle of a pandemic. We're not there where we can do that work.
Thank you. Any other select committee member wishes to ask a question on this item? Remember, we will come back to both items, item 5 and 6. Anyone can ask questions later on when we have food bank leaders to speak. After that, this agenda will carry on probably until 9 o'clock. That's the time I have in mind, no more than 9. Hopefully, if we have to reach the 9:30, we will. But that's the plan that we are hopefully working on it. If there is no other select committee members, any backbench councillor wishes to ask a question on this item of number A5? No? Oh, silence. Okay, if that's the case, then we'll be happy to move on to item number 6. And I think what we have learned from this one was specifically the two questions that both Councillor Greg Hammond and both Councillor Mohammed Bakhtiar asked was about the security of those who are working in the field of food banks, and those who are also in the long term support, people who will not like to be queuing for food. I understand. I've worked with Councillor Mo Bakhtiar since March. I remember we've met the first time delivering Easter eggs in my ward, and that was the beginning of it. And I hope that was short term, but it wasn't. It was continuing. It will continue for some time, as the lead member said. So hopefully we will work on a strategy in the long term that supports our residents, and also at the same time, while supporting our residents, as Councillor Greg Hammond mentioned, we will support our residents and making sure those who are volunteering are checked properly so that we don't cause any harms while we are supporting. On that note, if we can, on that summary, if we can move it to the A6, and again, Councillor Siren, if you could please give a kind of a summary of COVID-19 response, this time concentrating on the community engagement side of it.
Well, thank you, Chair, and thank you to the whole committee for asking for this paper to come tonight. And I'm really glad to be able to describe in detail how this council's community directorate has collaborated with other council departments and partners across the borough. And it is absolutely essential that we're listening carefully to what our residents and all our residents are telling us during this challenging time. And I think that all of these insights will be a vital part of the medium to longer term strategy that we've talked about, and we know how important that is. We need to be able to respond to those needs. And as I've sort of mentioned before, the needs are changing. I mean, they're changing all the time and have changed a lot in the last year. So we need to be nimble and reactive, and this applies to our department too. And I just wanted to remind everybody that before April 2020, there was no communities directorate in this council. This is a new department, and previously this was a service that was delivered across the council. And part of our commitment post Grenfell was to set up a community engagement department to work with all our residents and have a two-way dialogue with them. But I guess the point that I'm trying to make here is that this department is new, and many of the people that have come, have not even had a face-to-face meeting with their colleagues or even with me. Not only do they have to figure out their new role and build relationships on Zoom and try and map out what business as usual would look like, they also have to respond to the pandemic, which, as we've talked about, has caused huge uncertainty and fear for many of our residents. So I have to admit that in the early very few months that when we started responding to this pandemic, we were in a state of reaction, and it's really taken time to get these forums and mediums of engagement really up and running. We started with the Community Resilience Group, which was set up very early on, really by our partners, not by us. And this has been a very useful meeting to gather community feelings and needs, and working with the NHS. And this group does need to evolve, so we can hear from more of our partners, and that work is underway. But just to touch on some of the highlights of what we now have in place, we conducted a community sentiment survey. We now have an RA forum, which takes place monthly. And actually, I find this an incredibly useful meeting. We have good attendance, really good insights and points raised locally. Come to that meeting. We always do a short presentation on the response of the council for the RHs who attend that meeting. We have an interfaith forum, and I think that's particularly useful in reaching some of our residents who are harder to reach. We have a Black and ethnic minority engagement. This is open forum meetings to explore how the council and its partners can better support our residents. And we know that these residents are disproportionately affected. So we have a number of work streams which are described in the paper to support these residents. And I really do want to recognise the role of our voluntary and community sector they are the ones who are able to reach these communities and really partnering with them. We're really very, very lucky to have such fantastic organisations that support those communities. And also we work with our youth council. So the community service has worked in partnership with COMS, with Family and Children's Services and the Youth Council and youth providers to really better understand the barriers that might prevent young people from complying with COVID safety guidelines. And I think these networks and these forums also will really provide us with a framework for vaccination messages now that where we have to address vaccine hesitancy. I think these networks and these forums will really provide us with a good base to be able to do that. So, I mean, it's a lot of work, and we've really been on a journey, I would say, with all of these mechanisms for really trying to have a two-way discussion with our residents to really understand, the journeys that they are on. So again, I think we can always add to it. We can always, bring more people in. But I feel what we have now is a really good engagement network that can capture all of those insights and all of that feedback that we desperately need to get from our residents at this difficult time. So I hope that's a fair introduction, but thank you. I think it's a great opportunity for us to be able to talk about community engagement tonight, and I really do welcome the request for this important paper.
Thank you, Saren, lead member for communities. Just if I may start with the questioning on this, and I do apologize if you can hear the background for my kids. I locked myself in a room, but still I can hear them. I do apologize if any.
I think you can hear mine as well. So
do apologize. This is the way we're dealing with the situation. Thank you for the report, and I'm sure the select committee members will have questions. But just for my question is coming from not specifically on the report, but on the Annex B or digital exclusion. And I think once we talk about the communities and digital exclusion and digital gap, it's a problem that we have been experiencing, or at least some of our residents have been experiencing. And the data from ONS says estimation of 5,700 people, adult residents, may not have access to internet in RBKC, and 14,500 of them do not have basic digital skills. And on that sense, and we know the census is coming. So what about what we expected? Well, at least 10,000 residents are expected to be hard to count for our census coming up. So if we think about it, the numbers here, 5,800 adults not having access to internet, 14,500 have like the basic skills for digital, and as a result we may have 10,000 people who will not be accounted for in the borough. So what can this be done about it? And I'm sure you can give us a bit more details. It may or may not be under your remit on this, but this is a problem, and this is a problem that COVID-19 has exacerbated. We know the problem was existing before, but now that we are working, studying, and living in the same space, digital connectivity is vital. What can you say about that, please?
Well, completely agree with what you've said. I think we absolutely recognise that it's a problem, and clearly, given this current situation that we're in, it's even more of a problem than it was before. It does fall within my remit, but it is something also that falls into Mary Wheel's portfolio. We do have quite a detailed plan for how we are going to address this. But once again, with your permission, Chair, I may ask Tunde or even Olivia to give a bit of detail on the plan for how this is going to be addressed. If that's all right, I will call on one of them to really give the detail for the plan.
Thank you. Please welcome officers to contribute to this.
This will be
Tunde or Olivia.
Thank you. This will be Olivia who will speak to this.
Olivia.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair. I'm Olivia Shelks.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to sort of start by picking up the point about the census, if I may. The ONS has been working with the council to ensure that the hard-to-count residents you mentioned before will automatically receive a paper copy of the form that will go out at the beginning of March. And there is a census period between March, April and the 4th of May when individuals can return their paper copy. If individuals haven't filled it out by census day online or their paper copy, they'll automatically be sent one. So whilst we're not complacent about the issues of digital exclusion with the census, there is a plan in place to try and ensure, regardless, that there is support for individuals. And there's also going to be a number of locations where people can go out and fill the census if they haven't got a device at home, that they can fill it out in our census support centre in the north of the borough, all the 3 libraries, or with our VCS partners who are making some of their facilities that are COVID safe available during the census period. On the kind of wider issue around digital inclusion and the plan for the council to support, I think the key thing to say is the voluntary sector is already doing quite a lot in this area. So we know, for example, that Age UK, K&C have got programmes to work with some of their beneficiaries to look at what their digital exclusion needs are. And there is a number of surveys being done with different demographic groups to understand, is it about a lack of skill, is it about connectivity, or is it about access to devices and affordability? There have been some particular initiatives that have been pulled together by something called the Digital Inclusion Partnership Group, which is something that's being led in the IT department, that's being led by Councillor Mary Wheel. Obviously, you know, they can provide more detail, but just a very high level summary of the kind of activities they've been leading. They have created a device sourcing arrangement via London Grid for Learning, which allows the council to order 3 sorts of devices and dongles for those who can't be connected. The partnership has also identified the learning provision to support digital inclusion in the borough, and there has also been 50 home library users across the by-borough area that provided with tablets. Work is underway to provide devices to communal areas and all our sheltered housing blocks and potentially to all residents. 7 youth centres have been provided with laptops in partnership with the Kensington Foundation, and there is progress around laying fibre and looking to develop corporate social responsibility partners so that we can get devices donated or that can be reconditioned as well. So this is something, as Anne's pointed out, that over the COVID period, the need has become far more acute because people need access to the internet to access services, health services, you know, job support, and to access other public services. So I think I've given a quick summary there, but I can go into more detail if you want any more.
Thank you. I'll just follow up with that. Any chance we can get in touch with the other relevant departments or the lead member, and also whether it's this my select committee or offices or from your side, if we can get a breakdown of the background of those who have been, let's say 14,500 who lacks the basic skills. Where are they from? Where are they? Who are they? Are they old, young? And I'm using to make more details, to get more details about it, because let's say if we have an elderly person who have lived the borough for all his life or her life and wants to get in touch with her children, cannot visit them, but they cannot also contact via the internet. And I would like to know if the data, more details about their age, their ethnicity, so that we know we can target, we can do a target, or the department, the lead members can do a target approach rather than just a blanket approach for there's a problem. We need to know the problem in details so that the council hopefully can deal with it accordingly. Can you do that for us?
So I'm not sure who you're asking that question to.
I'm asking the digital team, since they're not here, and it's also part of under your leadership. Is there any chance you can work with the relevant lead member and to get the breakdown of this data?
Well, I will take it away as an action point, Kasim.
And if necessary, we can get the working, my select committee team to work with you on this, and hopefully get the this data, break it down, and have a targeted mission to fulfill what our residents are expecting from us. But we will be in touch with the relevant teams as well. We will not just give you more work. I understand you're busy with other commitments, but I think reaching out to members of the community of our residents who may or may not have one person to contact, but they cannot contact, and they cannot do so because they don't have the skills to do so, and they leave behind the doors. I think it will be heartbreaking for all of us, and I think we should get this going. And this pandemic has shown the importance of connecting with your loved ones, even if it's digitally. So thank you for taking that point. I think Councillor Greg Hammond.
We'll take it as a follow-up point.
Thank you, Councillor Greg Hammond. You were the first to raise your hand. I will be happy to ask if you can ask your question, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. And Anne, I'd just like to pick up on something you were talking about there, which was vaccine hesitancy, and which is a phrase I hadn't heard before. But recent polling suggested that more than 80% of us in the United Kingdom are willing to take a COVID vaccine when offered, which is, I think, one of the highest national percentages in international comparisons. But even within that really excellent number, we do know there's a significant minority who don't want to be vaccinated, and I guess that's the hesitancy you're talking about. And anecdotally, it does seem that some minority communities are particularly well represented in that group, and we know those minority groups are well represented in this diverse borough. So there's been some really notable cross-party national efforts to communicate with these groups. I think there was a very good video on social media with both Conservative and Labour MPs from various BAME groups talking about the safety of vaccines and the value of vaccines. But what more can we do locally as a borough to reach these groups?
So it's thank you, Councillor Hammond. It's really interesting. So Tunde and I, before we came on this call, we were actually on a call with Councillor Kamali and Public Health, talking about exactly and really it is a public health led initiative. Again, without wanting to sort of pass the buck here, I would like to get Tunde as the director to really comment on this, because it is going to be across the council, with public health, adult social care, comms and community engagement, really building on, I guess, the networks that we have and the voluntary organisations that we have that support some of these communities that have this these hesitancies. But I would say that there are also, for example, people who are scared of needles. I mean, they just and that's not based on their ethnicity or even their age or where they live. They just happen to not like needles. So we have to recognise that there are going to be residents like that as well. Who are different by their ethnicity or their situation, and I think it's an interesting question, because what I haven't seen is data on who exactly it is and where they are, and that's quite difficult to get hold of, that data, because it's obviously we have to get it from the GPs and the NHS rightly, they're very careful about how they share this information. So I think it's a tricky question, because until we know exactly where these people are, these residents who have this hesitancy, it's very, very difficult for us to support them, and some of them we will never convince. So I don't know, Tunde, whether you want to, well, with the chair's permission, whether you wanted to add to that, because it is a piece of work that we are doing.
I'd be very happy to hear a little bit more detail from Tunde, and I do accept that the Communities Department is in support of the Public Health Department on this, and therefore it's not your lead, but obviously you are involved in supporting the efforts, so very happy to hear a little bit more detail.
Tunde, you are welcome to.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I think, as Councillor Siren said, there's a lot of reasons around hesitancy. We don't have data, but we have lots of local insight, and we're using our networks, obviously, to try and understand what might be the drivers of hesitancy. National data, as you pointed out, says that there are some communities, groups that are more hesitant than others. That's changing daily. I think we are being very careful when we say BAME or BME, because that is a very wide umbrella term, and we know that even within that, there are different reasons that may drive hesitancy. Much of the national dialogue and the national data that we got spoke about COVID myths and misinformation being spread around, and so certainly locally we picked that up from our work with the BME Health Forum and some BME advocacy groups, as well as the wider VCS and what was coming through from our network. But when we delved into a bit more and engaged and spoke to some of our community groups, we found that there were other reasons as well. And with the chair's permission, this work's been led by Sanjay Green, who's our head of community participation. I'd like to bring her in where she can talk more about some of the work that we've done and some of the insights, local insights, anecdotal, that we found that will help us at least give us a line of inquiry as to what actions we need to take. Chair, are you happy with
Yes, please. Yes, Sanjay.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody.
If you can summarize, I would appreciate very, very quickly on this subject.
Sure. So our main lines of inquiry at the moment are looking at underrepresented groups and trying to understand who we're not seeing in terms of understanding why they might have hesitancy and understanding what those hesitancies might be about. So Councillor Anne Siren's point about people who are anxious about vaccines full stop is a great example. When we've spoken to older communities, we found some very practical limitations around transport, and the many people who are older, particularly the over 80s, who've been in their homes, many of them who've not left for 9 months, who now need to have a vaccine and don't know how they're physically going to be able to get that vaccine safely. That's been the cause of their hesitancy. So our approach within communities is to establish meaningful platforms for dialogue, whether that be through digital communities, communications, or whether that be face-to-face, and identifying which communities we're not seeing and hearing from, what we're not being able to understand, and how we can make sure that we use the information that we gain from them to find some practical solutions. At a starting point, that's about making sure that people have information. So some of our starting dialogue has been physically setting up meetings with communities. So BAME-led communities is one of the main avenues that we've gone down so far, but that's not going to be the only avenue. And when we spoke with those communities, hearing some of their specific concerns and limitations and access to information and resolving some of those things. So as we move forward, we've identified some specific resources that we've allocated to being able to do this work more meaningfully. And we will continue to both make sure that we understand what those hesitancies are, what the causes of those hesitations are, and how specifically within Kensington and Chelsea we can put practical solutions in place.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Sanjay, for that update. I'm pleased to say some of the BAME members in our borough, some of the residents, actually, some of my relatives have taken up the vaccines, and they're waiting for their second job. So we will advertise, and I'm sure it's a cross-party. And to add to that, Tunde has been on the phone with me, and hopefully to prepare for a cross-party video to get all councillors to get involved and support the vaccination, because we may have differences on policies, but this virus doesn't care about the color of our skin or the color of our political parties. And I think it's a necessary step to move forward and to do it across party, and hopefully have money lives to be saved, and then sell our policies. So I'll be looking forward to creating that video with the communities team when they are ready. And on that note, I will call, yes, Councillor Kim Taylor-Smith, you were first, but I would like to call Councillor Mo Bakhtia, and then hopefully, if there is no other committee members, we will be called. But in the meantime, can I call first Councillor Doris Schmatzling?
Thanks. I thought you said there's no one else. I was getting worried. I have sort of a series of comments and queries around the same topic of connectivity, which has concerned me actually for quite a while. I think this is an excellent opportunity to bring it up. First of all, I presume that we in the council are making use, or the residents of the affected residents we're talking about are making use of the extra data that the phone companies are offering. I've heard it from EE, and I believe O2 is doing it, giving temporary free increases of data. So that's one point. If I'm able to put them all together, then you can answer them as you wish. Second thing is, do we have a program to set up Wi-Fi in the estates? Because I know we've got one or two of the newer all-fibre companies digging up the roads, or were digging up the roads in the borough to put in very high-speed cabling for Wi-Fi, so that this could also be, in difficult times, you can provide free connectivity. And the third point is that it's all very well giving children in schools or residents who are not connected devices, be they laptops, computers or tablets. But what about the ongoing support? I mean, I know that if you've never done it before or done very little, a lot of it looks daunting. First of all, a lot of the basic stuff is daunting to operate it. And secondly, to maintain things. I mean, even to do a simple, Windows update may not be so easy for people. So how is the support done? So those are the three things: free data, potentially Wi-Fi in the estates, and tech support for what devices one's given, continuing in ongoing technical support.
Thank you. Anne, or any other officer wishes to answer that question?
Well, I feel that without wanting to put my colleague on the spot, the question about Wi-Fi on estates is really one for Kim. And I wonder whether I could ask him through you, Chair, to make a comment on that.
In the meantime, can you answer the other two? Well, if you don't mind, we will get to the Kim.
Okay, ongoing support for the tablets. Well, I completely agree with you, Dory, on support. You can give someone a tablet, but if they don't know how to use it, they don't know how to maintain it, then that's not going to work for them. I mean, again, it's quite a specific point, so I wonder whether I can ask Olivia to come back in on that specific question. About the maintenance of the tablets and the computers that are being provided, Olivia.
Yeah, thank you, Anne. So my understanding is some dongles have been distributed with these, but I think it's fair to say that these are short-term measures. These are not sustainable plans. I think the Digital Inclusion Partnership that I referred to before, which is a group it's taking in quite a large number of officers from the council, public health and voluntary sector, is trying to look at more sustainable routes to support. So I talked before there about the training that is being developed, opportunities through adult learning, libraries and other routes. But at the minute, there isn't a kind of an overarching plan for kind of providing free data across the borough. I'm aware that social housing are looking at implementing an affordable fast fibre optic for estates over the next 18 months. That is something that's been talked about, but there's no plans I'm aware of at the minute for kind of free connectivity for all residents at this point.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I just say, may I just add to that? I wasn't suggesting for all residents. I was saying for those who are in need of it, free. And is the free data that the big phone companies are offering, is that being taken up? I mean, do we know that?
At the minute, I'm not aware of whether that's being taken up. It's something I'd want to speak with IT colleagues who are leading this work to find out more about. I can come back to you to give you an informed answer.
Thanks. And then the ongoing support is being done, is it?
Thank you. Thank you. The ongoing support and / maintenance. Do you have any answer for that, Councillor Anne-Sharon?
Well, I think Olivia has touched on some of it. I mean, much of it's already much of it's still being rolled out. So I'm not sure we've got every single answer for how that is going to happen. But I mean, Olivia's talked about adult learning, library, voluntary sector training. I mean, there are plans in place to make sure that people do know how to use these devices.
So I'm also thinking of the children, the school children. We've already distributed laptops, so we must have some experience of potential issues of people who are new to this, who've been, okay, in some families, maybe they could afford one device, so they knew how to operate it, but we had to give them a second device for various reasons. But I mean, there must be some data already about how people handle these devices.
Can I say, the schools obviously have the schools obviously have provided support with machinery, with tablets and with computers. But again, Dora, I mean, I can't really know what support the schools have given to their children, and that probably is something that we have to ask. Family and Children's Services and Josh. I mean, I can't imagine they don't have a plan in place to make sure that people can use machinery, because if you can't use it, then it's not really very much use. So I can certainly take it away to Josh and ask him what the schools are doing. In terms of what we are doing, Olivia's, I guess, outlined some of the early stages that we've gone through with the voluntary sector training, the adult learning, and through the libraries. There will be more. I'm sure as time goes on, we will need to do more. And as we start to address the 10,000 people who are digitally excluded, more will have to be done.
Thank you.
Precisely, yes, indeed.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think we will come back to your third and final question, Dori, and hopefully Councillor Kim Taylor-Smith, lead member for housing, will be able to answer. But he will also able to answer and ask a question when his time comes. But in the meantime, can I call Councillor Mohammed Bakhtiar, please?
Thank you, Chair. This is a question and a suggestion at the same time. We have a number of councillors from Black and ethnic minorities in the council. I wonder if we could organize whoever hasn't been vaccinated yet, if we could coordinate all vaccinating them or inviting them to be vaccinated all together and give it some media attention to encourage those who are afraid or they have hesitance to be vaccinated. Do you think that would help?
Well, I'll certainly take it as a suggestion. As Councillor Ali has already said, he's already supporting this effort. Yes, we'll take it away, Mo, and see whether we can organise that.
Fantastic, thank you.
Perhaps we can share the video, Councillor Mohammed Bakhtiar, and with Kim and everyone else who's here to really encourage all the communities.
Fantastic, I think so.
Thank you. Councillor Bennett.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And the report mentioned work that had been done on mental health and getting sort of community groups to signpost to mental health services and sort of help in recognising people who might be having mental health issues. And we know it's obviously one of the big challenges of this lockdown. Without wanting to step too much on the toes of sort of adult social care and health, could you tell us, you officers, give us a bit more detail on how groups are supporting that that effort, how they are sort of drawing attention to it, and are we providing additional services as well around that?
Anne or any officer from your team?
I'm happy to give an overview, and I may, with the chair's permission, bring in our head of VCS and community partner in. So, as part of our raising awareness of what the VCS provide, and many of our VCS colleagues, we are really grateful that they have pivoted their services during the COVID period. As part of that, we split our a service offer into sort of three broad buckets. One was obviously food provision, the other was social support, advice and quality of life, but we also had a group of VCS who we signpost residents who are in need of mental health and well-being. So there was 15 VCS providers. I'm quite happy to write out to you about who they are, and much of their work. How the hub works is someone will call in, they'll describe what their need is, there'll be a triaging, an internal triaging process, and then either a referral or a signposting will take place. Just to pick up on the point before, a referral does mean a transfer of data. So those VCS organisations that we did refer into, we set up a memorandum of understanding in order to ensure that safeguarding protocols were in place and that the support they gave was appropriate to the person. So I will bring in Michael if there's anything else he wants to add at this moment.
Michael?
Thank you, Chair. I actually don't think there is very much to add, Tunde. You've described the hub quite eloquently.
Thank you. And on that note, I'm now calling Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Kim Telly-Smith, for your patience and waiting. Now you can answer the question of the establishing Wi-Fi in the estate, and hopefully you can you put your hand up earlier. You can answer.
I don't have a question. It was actually, thank you, Chairman. I was actually just going to give a supplementary information in terms of the questions that was asked. So yes, I'm very happy to say that we approved at leadership a scheme to install very, very fast cable to all of our estates, and the residents are now taking benefit of that. And don't ask me what the speeds are, but I know at the last TCC meeting there was great excitement because this is not copper wire, it's proper cable that's going into every home. So I think in terms of digital connectivity, we'll have that, and we'll get benefits from that in terms of cameras and other things. The other thing I just wanted to cover on in terms of connectivity, digital connectivity, which Anne has referred to, within our own housing, we obviously monitor this. We think there's about 20% of our residents that aren't connected. But I think it's important when you're talking about IT to remember, obviously, although a large number of those people are older people, that we're actually providing computers and support and inviting people to the meetings. A lot of people don't want to have a computer because they have one in their hand. And I think the future, and this is something as far as our services are concerned, is with smartphones, because a lot of more people have access to a smartphone. So it's not necessarily a laptop, and access and support is the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think that concludes the meeting. Okay, Councillor Doris Schmetterling, you put your hand up again. Do you want to have a quick question again?
I did. I wanted to comment on Councillor Taylor-Smith's remark about the mobile phone. I do agree with him. I found amongst the residents with whom I've had contact, some of them don't have a computer, but they have a phone. But there is a limitation which we have to think about, and that's the size of the screen. And if we send them documents and they've got forms to fill in, I think it's going to have to be a tablet at least. But that's similar to a phone, I suppose. Thanks. That's what I want to say. You can't do everything on a phone.
No, thank you. That's a valid comment, and I'm sure the lead member for housing and the lead member for communities will take that on board. Councillor Tom Bennett, your hand is still up. Do you have a follow-up question, or was it just previously?
No, it was just, that's an old hand. Okay,
hold on. Thank you. On that note, we are now summarising the A6, and again, thanks for the team that has been providing the report and information that has been talked about this evening. I'm sure this will continue in the future. But just to recap, what we've just covered is the number one is vaccine hesitance, and I'm sure there will be a campaign, a cross-party campaign, and that will be supporting locals to take up the vaccination so that we can at least get back to life as we knew before COVID-19. And Wi-Fi in the States, that Councillor Kim Telly-Smith has talked about it, although there was a bit of hesitation of the number of the speed and how how speedy will be the internet. I hope that in time it will be very good speed for our residents to benefit from, and the ongoing support and maintenance, as well as the free data. Lead member and the team, the senior officers will take on board on this and hopefully get us important data on this if the council or any other organization within the council is taking up this offer. And to one of the last point is the BAME targeted campaign, and actually not just BAME targeted, but also any other groups that are, vaccine hesitance is there. So we will have to make sure that targeted campaign will be done in the future. And finally, mental health issue. Although this is not, I have to stress, this is not within our remit as a select committee, but Councillor Tom Bennett mentioned this, and he actually said that it's not within our remit to talk about this issue, but it's something that communities have a hand, and they can cover areas that may not be within their remit. So mental health issue and the referral, that was the last point of this. I would like to thank all of you for really putting this through and answering the question as we can. Now my attention shifts to the food bank providers, the leaders that have been patiently waiting for our time to start, and would like to, and I'm sure I will say on behalf of the selection committee and on behalf of the council, to thank the food bank providers of the council of our borough and the work that they have been doing. I've mentioned earlier Marcus Rashford for what he has done in the country as a nationwide, but you are our local heroes, and I thank you on behalf of the selection committee and on behalf of the council as a councillor and an ambassador for the councillor, to say thank you ever so much for your support, for helping communities that you individually you may not know, but felt the need to come out and really support and double your efforts. As we said earlier, the food bank problem with food insecurity has been ongoing for a long time. However, the COVID-19 has exacerbated the problem, and now we are in a situation where we have almost, let's say, tripled, if not doubled, if not tripled, the number of food bank providers in Kensington and Chelsea. And this is an opportunity for the leaders to have up to 5 minutes of the activities that they have been doing. And now we have about 11 food bank providers who we have invited. All of them, 11, came back to us, and they are the Bay 20, Central Gurdwara, Delgado Trust, Harrow Club, Kensington and Chelsea Food Bank, Notting Hill Methodist Church, the Venture Centre, and the One UK, Restart Lives at Colombo Church, St Luke's Mutual Aid Food Bank Club, Almana Space, and Unity Grove. I will be happy to welcome. Let me start with Bay 20. I have worked with them, and I've worked at least 5 or 6 food banks in the borough. I wish to welcome representative from Bay 20 and summarize their activities and the support they have been getting from the council, and then we will move on from that list to call food bank leaders who have been supporting our communities. So anyone representing from the Bay 20?
Hi, yes, Fiona here.
Thank you, Fiona, and please take the platform. And once again, personally, I've been there a couple of times, and thank you for what you have been doing. You've been excellent to our community. You will forever be remembered, you and all others.
Thank you for that. In brief, we took over Bay 20 on January the 2nd last year, and on the 19th of March we had to close due to COVID. We opened up again on the 21st, supporting at that stage about 15 homeless people that we'd been doing breakfast for. Within a matter of weeks, it had gone up to about 20, and over the last year, it's gone up. We're doing about 100 meals a day now, and in partnership with Unity Grove, we're helping to run a street kitchen. And last week we had 172 food packages and 205 meals. So it's increased quite substantially. Initially, we were working with Aid UK and KCSC and Lank West RA and we helped set up the food provision for the over 65s. And then with Venture Centre, we were doing the food deliveries. We got some funding to help support that, to pay for transport costs through K&C Foundation, which we're very grateful for. But that ran out last year, so we had to stop doing the deliveries. But we continue to cook every day. We also, as part of the street kitchen with Unity Grow, we now provide clothing and warm weather gear, sleeping bags, that kind of thing. And we've set up an advice service in November. We got some funding to run an advice service. So basically that's what we're doing. The council has supported us with food initially from the London Food Alliance. And just before Christmas, we got the winter grant. So that's the support. Councillor Anne, we have to say a massive thank you to Anne. She's been so supportive of us, as have you, Kasim, and Judith and Marwin, who pop by every other day to check on us. So thank you very much for that. And Kim Taylor-Smith as well has popped down a few times. So thank you very much.
You're welcome, Fiona, and thank you. I think the credit goes to you and your team. Just quick question. You've said you've stopped deliveries. Could you tell us, I understand the funding dried out and you've stopped it. Could you tell us the type of people or the age that you have been delivering food to?
Yeah, so we were delivering food on behalf of the council under the shopping. That's what we did in the mornings. And then in the afternoons, we were delivering to a variety of people who were either shielding or sheltering. So some were families which had children, 7 in a family, 5, 6, 3, that kind of thing. Anyone basically who was shielding for the 2 weeks and couldn't afford food, we were delivering out with Westway Trust Community Transport. So we got about £6,000 funding towards transport, which we passed on to Westway Community Transport. So there was a variety of ages there.
So how do the people, how do the people who used to get the delivery, who are still maybe self-isolating, how do they get their food now?
So at the moment, we've had quite a few phone calls recently, again, since this new outbreak. We've asked them to either send a neighbour down, or some of them have carers. We're still delivering to a couple of people who are terminally ill, but that's done by one of our workers who's built such a rapport with them that he voluntarily is still delivering to them. But other than that, it's sending neighbours, friends, that kind of thing. That's the only way we can support at the moment.
Sure. So funding from the council or any external agency will be appreciated, I am assuming.
Yes, if Westway Trust have even got a driver for us anymore, I don't know. But I mean, alternatively, the other option would be to hire our own van and deliver ourselves, because we've got people who can drive.
I'm sure the lead member will come in and comment on this, but I will let other food bank providers, leaders, to come and say about their organization and what they have been doing. And after that, hopefully the lead member will be able to respond to each and every food bank needs, or at least comment on what they've said and taking the notes in the same time. But so far, you've said it exactly. 20 to 100 people now have been getting food. It started with 20, but up to 100, and delivery has stopped. So thank you, and I hope that we will come to a point where more support will be offered to you and your team. And,
thank you.
And if I may call for Delgado Trust, I know that Delgado Trust have been supporting well before COVID-19, and if anyone representing from Delgado Trust in my ward, Delgado ward, I'll be happy to welcome to the platform.
Hello, Councillor Kasim. Thank you. It's Anne Goodyear. I'm the Chief Executive at Delgado Trust. And as you say, we've run a food bank at the Delgado Trust for a long time. And as you've also said, our numbers have actually tripled. Usually we look after about 45, 50 people a week. That's probably what we were doing this time last year. We're currently seeing, well, last week was 145, the week before 150 people coming in for food parcels. We take deliveries from the 2 main providers that have been mentioned, City Harvest and Felix, And we also receive quite big food donations from Sainsbury's, Marks and Spencer's. We have to go and collect that, of course. People give us money. We did have a big drive to raise money before Christmas with something called the Big Give, which people might be familiar with. We've received funds from the London Community Response Fund through Kensington and Chelsea Foundation, and that's given us money to be able to supplement the food that's donated to us. Many people give us checks. There's no doubt, you know, that the high profile of Marcus Rashford really highlighted the need of not just food for children, but for families. And I see checks, you know, once or twice a week coming in, donations to our food bank. And that just enables us to buy things for people. Also from the council, as you know, we get a delivery of milk every week, about 90 pints, and every 2 weeks we get a delivery of staples, pasta, rice, veg and fruit. Because of COVID, we have to ask people to queue outside. And somebody mentioned earlier about people queuing outside. It's very difficult. COVID restrictions means that we can't have people in the centre. We have to give them a list, ask what they would like to have, and then they give it back, and then they come back later and collect the pre-packed bag of food, which is probably about 40 to 50 pounds worth of food we're able to give everybody. So that keeps everybody going for quite a few days. Because they queue outside, they sometimes see their friends, they want to talk to them. So sometimes social distancing can be very tricky. So over the past 3 weeks, we have been hugely supported by the community wardens coming down and just being there and encouraging people to keep social distancing. And that's been so helpful. And the community wardens, we have to say, they are so polite, they are so gracious in their approach to our community. It's a really, really good initiative and really helpful for us and for our community in keeping everybody safe. It's been really good. We can't do deliveries. We just don't have the resources. Our food bank manager was previously our bookings manager, but we're not taking any bookings for our centre at the moment. So we've just redeployed her to run our food bank. And we have a cohort of volunteers, and they're fantastic. They're fantastically reliable. You know, like you said earlier, Chair, they turn up, they're reliable, they want to help, and they work really, really hard. It is really hard. On Christmas Eve, everyone was there till 9:30 at night, handing out food parcels to people to make sure that they were well stocked up for the Christmas period, because we were closed that week. We've had a lot of support. Well, we've sought a lot of support and got it. And you know, it is hard, and we are seeing new people every week, new people who have lost their jobs, or, you know, and it's the first time. And, you know, to echo what somebody said, they feel, you know, that their dignity is impaired by coming to a food bank. But our attitude up at Dalgarno is, you know, people have been working, they've been paying their taxes, their insurance, they've been working hard. Suddenly they can't. Why shouldn't they come to a food bank? There should be no inhibitions about coming to a food bank. We're here, we're a community, we're here to help each other, and that's what it's about. And that's, you know, that's our attitude in Dalgarno. But then we're slightly cut off from the rest, so we can have that in our community. We can overcome people's fears and anxieties about coming. We do see a lot of people with more and more with mental health issues, and that can be troubling. We see quite a lot of anxious people, but we try and work with those people and get them their food parcels quickly, and so that they can go away and they don't have to hang about, because I think a lot of people get anxious hanging about outside the centre. I can't think of anything else that you'd like to know.
Yeah, I wish to ask you just a quick question. I understand, and again, thank you and your team for the support you've been offering to our residents, and especially in my ward, the Ghana ward. You've mentioned 145 to 150, and that also is that includes the deliveries that you've been supporting, or is just on the day coming?
That's on the day coming. We can't do deliveries. We don't have the resources to do deliveries, but the RBKC, I've forgotten what it's called, they have volunteers who come and pick up, and also an organisation called TLC who are run out of the Tabernacle. They come and pick up for people who are shielding.
So perhaps a similar issue here with Bay 20 about the deliveries and the lack of resource to deliver to people who may go starving for the night and for the day if they cannot get deliveries, and because if they are self-isolating for whatever reason, age, health. Yeah, thank you ever so much. And are you still? I'm sure you're still doing also on the day on Thursdays hot meals.
Well, we can't use our kitchen because of COVID restrictions, but we get food from a group of young volunteers called Furloughed Foodies, and they bring up just boxes of fresh food, vegetarian or halal curry or different things, and we're able to give those little packed boxes of food out to people so that at least they go home with a ready-made meal, and it's been very well received, that actually.
Thank you, and hopefully the issue of the lead member will respond to the issue of a delivery and the transport and the lack of funding in there, and hopefully come up with the support that is tailor-made for Delgado. And again, thank you for taking the time and waiting to speak on this behalf, and hopefully to see you and visit you soon, sometime in the near future at the food bank. Now I wish to call the other food bank. I would call the Central Gurdwara. Any representatives from the Central Gurdwara who have been doing a fantastic job, including hot meals. Anyone from the Central Gurdwara?
Hello, Chairman. It's Gurpreet Singh Anand from the Central Gurdwara. So I'm the president at the Gurdwara. We're the oldest Sikh place of worship in the UK. And we're not really traditionally a food bank, but one of the principles of Sikh worship is that we have a community kitchen wherever there is a Gurdwara. And we have this belief that we show equality amongst all of humanity when people come and sit down and eat the same food together. So when lockdown started in March last year, and we had to close for worship, we were sort of wondering, well, we've got a good commercial grade kitchen in place, and what could we do to support the community? So we started preparing meals, and at first just working with people who we knew locally to send those meals to the elderly and vulnerable who would be shielding. And it started like that. It just grew to supporting key workers in hospitals, and then it started to grow to sending meals to food banks and also homeless shelters, where now we're doing about over 2,500 meals a week. They don't just go to places in Kensington and Chelsea. They go as far afield as Harrow, Hertfordshire. So, but again, the thing we realized was that we don't have that ability to get the meals to the people who need it. So working in partnership with the food banks and other orgs within Kensington and Chelsea allowed us to provide a resource that they could distribute, and that's worked out pretty well for us. I sort of totaled at the moment, we've done so far over 120,000 meals since the project started. We're very careful how we run this, because we've got to keep the volunteers working on it rotated. So each day we rotate the volunteers. That way, let's say if someone does get COVID and you have to take that particular volunteer team out of the equation, it doesn't impact the project because you've got another volunteer team and you can then look to backfill. So luckily, we've not had anyone catch COVID within the volunteer team. I better not say too much. I don't want to bring bad luck on us there, but it's worked out quite well. And in terms of funding, this has largely been self-funded from the Gurdwara's congregation and from our bank, the money that we have tucked away in our bank account, which is not going to last forever. It's starting to run low. But the only grant we did manage to get was £500 from Tesco's. That's about it so far that in terms of funding. The trustees realise that this is something that's needed, and as long as there's need, we will do our best to keep providing the meals and canvassing our congregation for donations to allow us to do that.
Thank you, Gurpreet, for what you have been doing in the borough and supporting our residents. 2,500 meals per week, that's a huge number. And again, thanks to you and the rest of your team and the congregation for supporting the locals. You've said 2,500. Can you give us kind of a breakdown of this figure? How much of it actually in the local, whether it's food banks that are working with you, and how much of it is being consumed locally? Half, maybe 2/3, 1/3?
I would say 3/4, 2/3 to 3/4 would be local, with we have about 200 to 300 going to Hertfordshire and Harrow each week.
Okay. Thank you. That's 2/3. That's the majority, clear majority. And as we've just heard from other food bank providers in the borough, transportation is an issue. How are you covering this transportation, and who is supporting you with the funding, if any?
What we've done is we've sort of got volunteers to bring their cars so we can go drop them to the food banks, drop the meals, or we ask for those who are distributing to come and collect from us. We realised that distribution was going to be a weakness of ours. One is knowing where to distribute it to, and two then is having that ability to do that. So realising that's our weakness, we're working with other local orgs. In a way, we've actually let them deal with that problem. But I recognise it is a problem because sometimes even we get issues with trying to just get the meals over to one of the food banks. Let's say if we don't have a volunteer one day, then it becomes a problem.
Thank you. So clearly support that you have already received, just £500 from Tesco, and delivered or at least prepared and giving out 120,000 meals so far. That's a staggering number, and clearly no support from the local authority or from the government. I'm sure it's something that we could talk about later on with the lead member and see support that can be offered to you and your team to continue the good work that you have been doing. And I know, because I have been supporting you one way or another, and coming down to the Gurdwara myself and doing some deliveries with my car. So thank you ever so much, and I hope the lead members will comment on this when the time comes to answer. May I call now Harrow Club, please? Any representatives from Harrow Club? Anyone representing from the Harrow Club Food Bank? If none, it's fine. We'll move on to the next. Thank you. Kensington and Chelsea Food Bank, Notting Hill Methodist Church, which I have supported and volunteered in terms of manpower, and have been doing fantastic work throughout the pandemic, and I can't thank you enough for support you have been providing to locals. Anyone from the Methodist Church?
Hi, Kasim. Susanna Yard.
Hi, Susanna. Great to meet you at the food bank. Please give us a summary of the work the excellent work that you and other food banks, of course, are doing, but especially you and I'm sure Councillor Bosha Thaxter will support, and Councillor Bakhtiar, who came a few times with me at the food bank to support. Please tell us.
Just to say that, you know, we work by a referral system, so the majority of our clients that come along have been referred from one of the organisations up and down, you know, the borough, usually. We've been feeding between 170 to 200 people, I would say, since about December. We've seen an increase. We worked with the Gurdwara seats until recently, receiving food from them for our sessions for our clients, which has been really, really, you know, loved by our clients, and we hope to start that up again. We try to not get too many repeated clients. We do have some people with some serious problems, but one of the ideas in the type of food bank that we are is that we help people through a crisis. Obviously, a crisis is a little bit longer at the moment because of COVID, but ideally we try to make sure that we don't create this dependency. So that's one of the things we're always keen to do. But we are seeing a lot of new people coming through, people that have lost jobs, all sorts of issues, and you know, spiraling out of control with things like debt already. So yeah, there are real concerns for people out there. And I think also what we're seeing as well is a lot of mental health issues, whether they're because of COVID or you know, already there, but that's concerning. So I think that's something that I would like to see be more support for local people in terms of mental health. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you. I think you've mentioned restarting work with the Gurdwara. Is it due to transport issue? I know you've been You've been working with the Gurdwara and delivering fresh meal. And I remember delivering. I know you've been doing a lot of work within the local organization. Is it due to transport issue or any other issue that you're helping to resolve?
It was, I mean, we helped to do. We did our own deliveries, and it's been a burden really being able to do it and not having drivers or not having vehicles. So we've had to stop doing that really. We stopped. You know, come the second lockdown, we already decided we wouldn't be able to do that. Just been one of the problems. Just to mention, I didn't mention the K&C Foundation did give us a grant of £1,000, which we used towards buying some shelving for our food bank warehouse. Thank you for that.
Thank you. And so the issue will be funding with the transport mainly, as well as any other support. What about the food bank that you've been receiving? The food that you have been receiving at the food bank, is it from the council or is from neighbours and supporters?
Most of our food donated is really, I would say, 90% is from local people donating, either coming to the church, or we have another point in Tesco's in Earls Court, and people can drop off food there. So that's the main bulk of where we get our food from. We're receiving some fresh food from the council as well, and we're very grateful for that. Milk and bread and some kind of more things that people can eat easily, because we do have quite a lot of people coming through from like refugees and are in facilities where they can't cook. So things like bread are really useful. And fresh milk and things like fruit and veg. Yeah.
Absolutely. So the biggest support from the council would be transport issue, as well as to increase the food that they're providing. Since the 90% is from the locals, perhaps the council can
I think also too, there's we lack some regularity in the food donations that we do receive from the council. We're not always sure if they're going to come or what time and things like that. So it's not always that we can rely on getting it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you ever so much for your leadership, you and your team, and hope to see you again in the near future. And hopefully the lead member will respond to the support that you definitely deserve, you and your team. And not you more. If I can now call the
Chairman, may I ask a question?
Sorry. Who was
May
that?
I ask the question, Mo?
Mo Bakhtiar, exceptionally, I would say yes, but I would not like other members to follow up with questions.
Okay.
But please, no, I will say exceptionally yes for the time being, since you put your hand.
Thank you, because
the question will be later.
Yes, thank you. Susanna mentioned something very important, because we heard from the Gurdwara that they are relying on volunteers to do their deliveries. So do you think this is going to be something useful to you if you had a couple of drivers with their cars to deliver your food?
Susanna, that's...
Yes, that would be very helpful, yes.
Okay,
So
I'll
we
try to spread the word. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So councillors and members of the public and our residents can hopefully go out and support the local food banks. Those who drive, I'll certainly make some schedule from now onwards. I have been doing it sometime, but since COVID-19 myself, down with COVID-19 myself, I haven't been that active, but hopefully coming back to life and strong, and we'll be providing more support and with the local food banks. So anyone from the Fenges Centre in Goulburn Ward, and I thank you for your time and for waiting, I understand, but please, anyone from the Fenges Centre and the Wand UK.
Hello, yeah, it's William Roberts. I'm the director of the Venture Centre. Just want to kind of, tell you a little bit about the journey we've been on, I suppose, with food and food support. And I'm very pleased to say, we've been on that journey with you as the council. And I think certainly, we've really progressed together. And I think, some of the earlier difficulties, I think now it's a very different kind of landscape. So, it's very good to be able to genuinely be working in partnership with you. So going back a year, if you can remember back that far, we used to have one food bank a week on a Wednesday and every other week on a Saturday, and we would see about 40 people. So then March last year, suddenly we had a building that we couldn't have anybody in, and were suddenly aware that there was going to be huge and different needs. So we actually completely pivoted our operation. We turned our big hall, which is normally used for events and parties and other big gatherings, and actually turned it into a food warehouse. And in conjunction with the COVID helpline run by the council, we ran a referral food delivery service for people under 65. It ended up there was an Age UK served the population over 65, and we worked with the population under 65. So we were distributing food across the whole borough, and we did that up until September, really, when need for that sort of diminished. But we carried on doing our food distribution, which we now do every Wednesday and every Saturday, which is food that we get from Fair Share, from the Felix project, and from City Harvest. Our numbers that were 40 a year ago went up to about 70 or 80 in the early weeks. And we're now seeing regularly over 200. The last one we did, we saw 217 people. So that's people who come, they come to the centre. We do it all outside, as we have done right through the summer and now into the snow. And we are consistently seeing those numbers increase. So when we got sort of over 100, over 150, and let's say now up to 200. One of the other developments that happened for us over the summer is we took over 3 other sites in the borough for where we run play services, but we're also using those venues to do food distribution as well. So 2 weeks ago, we started a weekly food bank out on the World's End estate. And in the first weeks, we're getting numbers up to around 50 or 60 people, and we're expecting those numbers to increase. We've also, in the last few weeks, started an additional food distribution service aimed at families, particularly families with children. Since schools have been closed and families are at home with children all the time, we realised, and we sort of reflected on some experiences of our own staff that were experiencing this kind of can I have demands of children throughout the day. So we actually now supply a bag of sort of additional food, things that are going to kind of just help the day. So there's some fruit juice and snacks and other things that just take some of the pressure away from feeding children that are at home all day. So we run that from 3 sites. We run that from the Venture Centre, from Flashpoint Centre on the World's End Estate, and Wiltshire Close in Chelsea. The other service that we provide is a kind of click and collect service, or click and deliver service for people who don't have access to the internet. So obviously you can't get a food delivery if you aren't online, and we have relatively small numbers coming through to do it, but through the helpline we will actually do the order and get that delivered either through Westway Transport, or actually our very helpful partners at Waitrose also do some of the delivery.
Thank you.
Just kind of one other point I'd like to raise on what we're doing, and it sort of feeds into some of the other discussions that you've been having this evening. We actually are making increasing use of the queue of people who are waiting for our food distribution, because we realise that some of these people are coming back week after week, but also, there is an opportunity to actually find out a bit more about what is going on for them in their lives. So we've now got a partnership with Nucleus, the advice agency, where we'll do some triaging of people in that food bank queue, just to start to think about some of the underlying issues that are bringing in there, because we don't want to be in a position where we're just going to be patching over any problems. If there are things that we can actually refer them on to, and we see that as a huge opportunity. And we're also we started this week, we ran the first in conjunction with the CCG, we ran the first pop-up community vaccination centre, and that's very much aimed at people who are feeling uncomfortable about vaccination, and again in conjunction with a couple of local GPs, we actually talked to people in the food bank queue this weekend, just to start to see, are there issues, what is kind of holding them back from vaccination, and seeing what the opportunities for a community venue for vaccination to actually get over those issues.
Thank you ever so much, Michael. That's a very fantastic update. And not only that, you are now operating in the north of the borough, but also reaching out to the south of the borough, Wall's End, and providing, starting with the food of 50 people, but overall here, and it started the numbers 100 to 200, and now vaccination information center, and I hopefully it could well be used. Your center could be used as a vaccination center for food bank users to come along and actually use the center. Those who may not want to be in a hospital or a GP environment, I think there's a very valid point to be taken on board, and hopefully the lead member will comment on that, using food bank and also faith centers food bankers and faith centers to use as a vaccination center. Thank you ever so much, Michael, for that update, and hopefully lead member will comment on areas that are relevant. If I may call now the Restart Lives at Colombos Church, St. Colombos Church. If there's anyone representing the Restart Lives at St. Colombos Church, please, kind of south of the middle of the borough, or south of the borough, if you can please come forward and give us updates of and the support that you may wish to get from the council. Anyone from the Restart Lives at all? Okay. Shall we wait a second to see if there's someone unmuting or muting? No. Okay, we move on to St. Luke's Mutual Aid Food Bank Club. Anyone from St. Luke's Mutual Aid from Food Bank Club?
Yes, it's me.
Yeah.
Albina. So my name is Albina. Hello, everyone. And I'm the coordinator of St. Luke's Food Bank Club that been launched in late November. The story behind that, the mutual aid platform was created for the COVID response from last year in March, and it's been divided by different areas of the borough. So I think if I'm correct, there were like 5 areas covered, like north of the borough and everything. So each area had a group of admin team and the volunteers who's been doing shopping service, offering some advice, calls, people like shielding, etc. And then as of last November, all the mutual aid platform was centralized. And now we have the database of volunteers, approximately of 80 people. And what we realized that now north of the borough has been really good covered in terms of food bank. And what happened in the south of the borough, especially postcodes SW3, SW7, SW5, there were like no food bank as such. So from the councillor support and St. Luke's and Christchurch on Sydney Street, they offer us the space to start operating a food bank club. So the idea of the food bank is, well, it was to create support to people living in the area, in the Chelsea area mainly, like Kings Road, Fulham Road, and there is a lot of council estates as well. So we did the signposting, posters, referrals processes, and we started operating on a weekly basis. So we actually operate every Tuesday, and today we have the service. And after like 12 weeks of operation, the demand was really growing. So we started basically from 4 clients, and now we are getting approximately 50 clients per service. It's only like 2-hour service. And the demand was like increasing steadily. And what we also noticed that the asylum seekers, it's really, they started to come like in big numbers. And obviously our food supply was limited because we only just started, and we got really generous donations from City Harvest, from Phillips Project. Fair share we collect from local Tesco stores in the south of the borough, and also we receive good donations from the council, with fresh milk, fruits, and what else we have, like, yes. And then I think local fruit stores as well, they're really giving us really great support. Therefore, our focus is give like fresh fruits and vegetables, and then as we operate only on a daily basis and once a week, and we don't have storage and fridge facilities, so all the surplus, if we have some, it's roughly 20 bags, we distribute the surplus to local charities. So for instance, we donate to Dad's House, St. Thomas Association, the Smith Court in Earls Court. In terms of numbers, in SW3, like our database, we roughly got like 53 people, and SW3, it's around like 20, 25 clients. SW5, we got like 7 clients, and and most of them, 80%, they're returning. And asylum seekers, it was another issue that we really noticed a tremendous increase, and people from Ambassador Lily Hotel and Aquarius Hotel started to come. And then we issued them the ticketing system, because obviously like our focus was to serve more people. Our clients were like people who've been made redundant. We realized that there is a huge demand of the young families, roughly like 30, 40 like years old, with like 3 or 5 members of the household. They've been made either like put on furlough, made redundant, cut off all the universal credit, and they're really like thankful for what we are doing. So yes, in terms of volunteers, each service we have roughly 12 people, and they do like different shifts. So basically we pick up in the morning, 3 volunteers pick up all the donations. Then like the preparation of the service is around like 5 people, and the service itself is like roughly 8 volunteers. And I also might point out there is a huge demand of the deliveries to be provided to elderly people, and we don't provide it yet, only on exceptional basis through referrals process. And because we don't have too many volunteers with vehicles, and obviously for the safeguarding purpose with all this, because we just started recently. So basically that's the overview of our operation in St. Luke's Mutual Aid Food Bank.
Thank you, Albina, for the support that you have been giving to the local people. And I understand this is a relatively a new food bank, but the need of food security, or the food security, is a greater than expected due to COVID-19, and hopefully this will not be situation for many years. But the reality is, we will go through. As long as there's a poverty, there will be a food bank and food shortage in the borough. So thank you once again for the support that you have been providing the south, mainly the south of the borough. And I believe there was a short 30-second or a minute video that you recorded about your food. Is that the case? If that's the case, I would ask the officer Hannah to show that. If not, that we can move on to the next.
Excuse me, Chair. I think the video was for a different food bank we haven't got to yet.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you very much. We can go back to the agenda as it was. Thank you. If I now may call Al-Mana, and Al-Mana, I have to declare interest here, although I haven't declared earlier. Now seeing Al-Mana in the list as a council appointed trustee, as a council trustee, I would like to mention and go on the record that I'm a councillor and a trustee there. I'm a councillor trustee, so I will declare that interest, and nothing further I will be discussing, just summarizing their points and what they have been doing. I'm sure a member of the director or the senior member of their staff will be able to explore more. Welcome.
Thank you.
You're muted. I can't hear you.
Sorry, I am unmuted, really.
Yes, now you're okay.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Abdurrahman Said. I'm from the Al-Manar Mosque and Cultural Center. Our food distribution, we're not a food bank, but in terms of food distribution, we've been working in partnership with Age UK, Kensington and Chelsea during the first lockdown, so March to July. We were delivering food packages for 1,000 households a week, and that continued to July. Since then, things were relaxed, so we're just on standby whenever there's a need for support with food packages. The other activities that we have in relation to food is we have a community kitchen, which is used to cook food for the community whenever there's a need, including to support volunteers. Recently, we have had a vaccination, COVID-19 vaccination. So we were providing food for the volunteers and the doctors who were using our center to give vaccination to the community members. It was a trial one, but there is a good chance that if we become a vaccination center, then we'll be continuing to use our kitchen to provide food. I think that's I can say in short about the Al-Manar's involvement in this.
Thank you. You've mentioned the food distribution center for Al-Manar. Could you tell us any other organizations that have been working with you?
Yes, Age UK, Kensington and Chelsea have been mainly the main partner, especially for the over 65 years olds. We also had a charity called Help Yateem and other charities who were providing food like Felix and Penny Appeal. Those charities were helping us to reach out to people who are under 65 but in need of support.
So what would you say the support that Al-Manar as a food distribution center and now vaccine center trial, so be it, or a pilot project will be the need they need from the council, or they have the help they need from the council would be?
The council has always been one of our main partners in all our activities, and I think we would like to continue with that partnership. And there's always going to be a need for publicizing services and covering some costs and so on. So that's the kind of help now we currently look forward, and it's been provided to some extent even during this COVID-19 to reach out to the community, provide sessions on information and so on.
Thank you. I think that answers the question, and hopefully the lead member will comment on the good work that you have been doing. So thank you on behalf of my selected committee and on behalf of the council, and hopefully the lead member will do the same when she has the opportunity to comment on it. We have two more two more food bank leaders, and after that, Councillor Anne Saran will come to you, and hopefully you will be able to have your comments on what you have heard so far. If I can call now food bank in the north of the borough as well, Space. Anyone representing from the Space?
Yes, good evening, and thank you, Mr. Sorry, my name is Samia Badani. I'm the CEO and co-founder of the Space. Just very quickly, Albina talked about the zones in KNC. There was 7. We actually mapped and the borough and created 7 zones for mutual aid, just for the record. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for inviting us the Space to share our experience and our role in tackling food poverty. I'll try to not be longer than 5 minutes. I say food poverty rather than insecurity because it is a fact through our engagement work that an increasing number of households are not able to obtain an adequate and nutritious diet. That's the very definition of food poverty. I just wanted to make that point rather than food insecurity. It is an understatement that the last year has had its share of challenges on our communities in Kensington and Chelsea. We are nowhere out of the woods, and successful recovery requires partnership work. It requires honesty and the ability to self-criticize with the view of creating solutions together. Honesty may at times not sound pleasant, but is necessary. We owe it to the communities we serve or represent to raise issues that hinder progress. Last week, an officer of this authority told us we came with baggage and needed to park it and be constructive. And I'll come back to that. The officer whose responsibility is to support food support outlets apparently was not aware that we at the Space provide food support. So let's explain who we are and what we do. The Space stands for Supporting People and Community Empowerment. It is predominantly a BME-led community and was set up in the aftermath of the Grenfell Tower fire. It has since played a pivotal role in the recovery of local communities in North Kensington. It developed a new model of service delivery, led, driven and defined by community it serves and supported by an engagement strategy. It is responsive and adapted to emerging needs of local communities. It works in partnership with statutory and non-statutory agencies, both delivers and commissions services that meet local needs. We've got a track record of crisis management and working with people with complex needs. We provide advocacy services as well as peer support. We tackle social isolation as well as building local capacity. So at the start of the pandemic, we decided to close our doors to the public so as to not put them at risk, but we were not going to stop doing what we had been doing for over 2 years. So we focused on engagement on the grounds, and especially the south of the borough. And so far, this is what we've delivered. We've delivered 34,000 meals borough-wide. We reached out and supported residents in 14 wards in Kensington and Chelsea, covering 77% of the borough. And many of those residents are constituents of members of this committee. We conducted 2,600 welfare checks. We set up a borough-wide free phone support helpline by the community for the community. We work with 15 agencies, organizations in KNC. We work with 14 residents association groups. We generated over 47,000 in income for residents. We collaborate with community groups in Brent, Ealing, Hammersmith and Fulham. We set up the first baby bank in the borough. I've been nearly finished. We are starting a partnership with a national organization to provide emergency fuel vouchers. And we're exploring new ways of working with 2 major housing associations in the borough. And we're also talking to some people in Liverpool. For the records, we've not received food support from the council. We do not sit on any of those groups that are mentioned in the reports. And for the records, we are not a new food outlet. It is what it is. The only time we needed support was for funding for transport by Bikeworks, which is a non-charities in the north. They applied through the councillor's fund. The councillor approved, and that was turned down. And we don't understand what stopped that. So we've engaged, we've listened, and we've helped. Whilst there are officers who I can see have worked hard, and I commend them.
You have 1 minute remaining.
Yeah, I'll be as fast as
Summarize, please.
Yeah. There's an urgent need to work differently. There's an urgent need to move away from traditional partnerships models with the VCS. This is the only way. This is only by doing so that you will ensure that people like the 70-year-old lady I spoke to yesterday in Earth Court get support. The authority needs to aim higher, to be bolder and more ambitious. So I'm going to make some very quick recommendations. I don't know if you're aware of the London's food response to COVID-19 report. And I would urge the committee to consider recommending a food poverty action plan for this borough, and urgently look at investing in Wheels on Meals like other local authorities do. And I'm going to conclude and talk about something that not everybody want to hear about. What we've experienced here at the space is the remnant of a culture of institutional indifference to residents in North Kensington. This needs to be addressed. There's absolutely no reason why we were excluded, and we've been excluded. And rather than continuing to empower our community, we were disempowered.
Thank you.
So I would ask for this to be publicly acknowledged.
There's
been behavior, very quickly, of people trying to shut us down. So I think if we want to move forward, it's time to address the bad behavior in this council. Thank you.
Thank you ever so much. And for your summary, you've added that you've been providing since the pandemic started, or since you started supporting meals with supporting locals who are in need of meals, up to 34,000 meals, and covering almost 70% of the borough. That's a huge task. And you've mentioned that you are working with 15 organizations. I'm assuming most of them, if not all of them, will be locally. So I hope that the lead member will be responding to the issues that you have raised, and we will be able to talk about it. And finally, last but not the least.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. There was a little clip that was from us. It's a 30-second clip, and it's a positive message from the community.
Yes, please. I'm sorry, I got it wrong earlier. I thought it was from the else called from St. Luke's, but happy to air that one. 30 seconds.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you ever so much, Samia, for the work that you and your team have been doing and the support. And I know I have been there and I've supported your activities, and I volunteered for you, for you and your team. And I look forward to doing in the long term. Hopefully, there will be no need in the long term for food banks, but since it's existing, we'll be happy to support. And I'm sure the lead member will have a comment on this. Last but not the least, I'm sorry, this is the list how I have it and how I got it from our officers. I haven't chosen, for the record, I haven't chosen anyone to go above or before or speak first and second. This is the list that I have been given, and probably is how food bank leaders responded to our request, and that's why I am now got this list. So Unity Grove, there was no reason to put you the last, but this is how the list has been presented to me, and I do appreciate for the work that you and your team have been doing. So if there's anyone from the Unity Grove, please speak and get to the platform to tell us more about the work, the good work that you have been doing. Anyone from the Unity Grove? Give one more second, or maybe 30 seconds to see if there's anyone from there. No, that's fine. Okay. Thank you ever so much for all of you, the work that you've been doing and will continue to do. I'm sure the council will be there to support. But on behalf of the council, on behalf of the committee, my committee, to thank you for the work that you've been doing, and hopefully committee members will be able to volunteer with their cars, those who are drivers, to support you. But here is the platform, Councillor Anne Saran, the lead member for community. Please welcome to the platform and give a feedback or respond to the questions that have been raised in the meeting.
So thank you, Chair, and thank you all of you for coming tonight. It's really great to see you, and thank you for making the time. It's so interesting and heartening to hear all of your experiences and stories and how you've adapted to provide the support for our residents and communities. And I'm really pleased that the Scrutiny Committee has been able to hear firsthand from you all of the work that is being done in the food support area. So obviously I've heard all your comments and asks. I have written them all down, and I will work with our community engagement team who are in touch with all of you to try and provide the specific support where you need it. I'm not sure it's appropriate to go through each specific request now, but we will be in touch to talk about the requests and asks that have been made. And we do have to be realistic about costs, and we've talked in the first part of the meeting about the council support which is being provided, and what's been provided to date and what continues to be provided. But having said that, we will of course consider all of your requests and if necessary also help with wider support. So from other funders, from London funders, the COVID response fund from the government, for VCS. But as I say, I will make sure that the community engagement team are in touch with all of you, as they, I hope, are on a weekly basis, to understand what specific needs that you had. And I did note that it was mentioned from Susanna about the lack of regularity, and I will absolutely follow up on that. And I really do apologise that has been your experience. But I mean, I have to say, I'm really humbled to hear all of your personal experiences and stories and the work that has been done. And thank you, and thank you for making the time to come and share your stories with us tonight.
Thank you, and I'm sure you and your team will be in touch with each and every one of you, as you've said it. If there are any burning questions that the selection committee may have, or the food bank leaders may have, apart from the response that has been said that the lead member will be in touch with each and every one of you. If you have any questions, I would first start with the the selection committee members, and then followed by quickly any food bank leaders want to ask a question quickly. Greg Hammond, please.
Thanks very much, Chair. And I think my question's to the lead member, Anne. And but first of all, I'd really like to say my thanks to everybody who's presented tonight. It was really amazing to hear, I think, 10 or 11 organisations doing fantastic work supporting people during this national crisis. And it was really heartwarming to hear what you all had to say. And I mean, obviously, the council is just one part of this, and it's not a bottomless pit. But I think the word that I would like to pick up on, I think Mr. Said, and I think El Manar, if I was getting the organisations right, mentioned the word partnership, and saying how much you valued the partnership with the council. And I'd just like you to reflect back on how you view the word partnership in terms of how the communities team engage with these local organisations, and what that means.
Well, we really do, I think, work in partnership, with all of our voluntary organisations, and part of the role of our new team is to make sure that we're able to do that. So I absolutely agree with you, Councillor Hammond. I mean, it's at the core of what our response is. We would not be able to, well, we wouldn't have seen the food support that we've seen in this borough without that partnership. So I agree with you. It's completely core to everything that we're doing.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Ansaran. I think Samia has a question.
Very quickly, I'd like someone to call for a borough-wide food poverty summit. And while I'm not criticizing the CRG, I think it needs to be it can't be behind closed doors. There are lots of organizations, stakeholders, even the private sector who got a stake in tackling food poverty, and it's becoming an increasing issue. So I'd like someone to make a commitment to consider having or holding a food poverty summit in Kensington and Chelsea like other boroughs do.
Thank you for your question. I think the CRG you're referring to is the Community Resiliency Group, right?
Yes.
Okay, I am a member of that group, and I have been a member since my Labour group leader, Councillor Pat Mason, put me to, and of course with other councillors from my group to put me there, and I've known the work they've been doing. So, but your question, I think, goes to the lead member to answer that for the summit that you've suggested. So, yeah.
Well, actually, with your permission, Chair, I may ask Sanjay Green to comment on exactly this. With your permission, Chair.
Please, yes, Sanjay.
Sanjay.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening, rather. My camera hasn't gone on. Can you hear me okay?
That's fine. We can hear you. That's
okay, great. Yes, so we absolutely appreciate and understand that we do need to have a long-term solution to this. Guys, COVID is going to get more, the impacts of COVID are going to become more noticeable in all of our communities across the UK, across the world, and that includes within Kensington and Chelsea. And so whatever understandings we did or did not have around food and food insecurity or food poverty, as you said, Samia, absolutely has to change in this time. And we have been talking about that. Anne's been really, really clear, Councillor Anne's been really, really clear in her communications with us about the importance of us staying in contact with residents directly, with those who are in the food provider space directly, but also with wider groups, including CAB, including Nucleus, including an understanding of economic developments and the many things are happening right now, whether it be with homeless people, whether it be with older people. And so our response is very simple. We are putting in place short-term solutions, and we're doing that with our partners. And many of those partners are on this call, but there are others as well who have not been. And we're looking at some longer term solutions that we need to work out together. So we've had an initial food insecurity, and it was an insecurity workshop on the 22nd of January. And then moving forward, there'll be a bit of paper that will be going to the joint leadership team around some of the recommendations that we think we need to put in place. And those recommendations are being gleaned not just about what's in Kensington and Chelsea, but what is happening across London and across the UK right now. There's lots happening in this space already that we can learn from about how we can put in some more sustainable solutions. Some of those solutions are about poverty, and some of those solutions are about specific financial insecurities that have been caused about COVID. So, Sammy, I would say, yes, we hear you. We welcome you to be part of that conversation. Please watch this space and we will come back to you.
Thank you. That is very relevant or very good answer, if I may say. Thank you, Sanjay. And of course, officers, without your support, we couldn't have done this. And I'm sure the lead member would share with this. But thank you for everything you've been doing. And officers, not just you, Sanjay, but every officer, whether it's a scrutiny meeting, whether it's working from remotely from your homes, dealing with all the stuff you've done. So we can't thank you enough, and including presenting the reports and doing everything you've done regardless. So thank you for everything you've done, Sanjay, and all other officers in RBKC. Your work will be appreciated. And you would like to add something on this?
Well, I just wanted to, I guess, underline what you've just said, Councillor Ali, about our staff, and I think as I alluded to at the beginning, many of many of the staff of this team have really gone, well, they're certainly not doing what they were employed to do. COVID response has taken over business as usual, and I really do think people have gone above and beyond, both inside the council and, I include our partners in this as well, those that we partner with and the voluntary organisations. So thank you for acknowledging that, and I would like to also add my thanks.
Thank you. Yes, I think finally to say on the food bank, to the food bank leaders, I know you've been working, some of you together, some of you have been working separately. The work you do is greatly appreciated. So the more you can work together, and perhaps between you share resource, and whether you provide food or transport for each other, please do work with each other and to the best ability you can, so that even the council and other external organizations can support you. I think we leave on that note on this matter, and I'm sure the lead member will get back to you. Just to go back to the response to the Samia, you've asked about the food bank or food summit. I think, although that's a question for the lead member, on the scrutiny side of it, things, if I were to give you a short answer, we have a plan. At least we put the date down, and select committee members will hopefully make themselves available for this meeting on the 24th of May. That's an added scrutiny session, and I informed some of my members, and I will hopefully get a response from most of them that they will be able to make it, or we can choose another day. That will be a date to look back our scrutiny year, and one of the things that we will be looking back is how food bank leaders have been supported after today's session. So yes, we will be coming back to you perhaps and ask you how you feel about after the scrutiny meeting, and the leadership provided the support and the guidance that you needed from them. So, and this also will include housing repairs, basically the whole year of the scrutiny. This is additional date that we have now booked for our scrutiny session. On that note, I will move on from there, and our final item for this is just if there's any other business or any other urgent business that the councillors would or anyone else would like to ask. If there's anything else that you would wish to ask urgently, we'll be happy to include. That's both the selection committee and the chairs of the two working groups, or any other backbench councillors to want to ask the question, or if that matter, any other food bank leaders, if they want to ask the questions, this is the platform for you to ask. I think it's been a long day and long evening, if I may say so, and I think no one wished to ask any other questions. So we will end with this, and again, I cannot stress enough to thank you all. Our next meeting will be, if I'm correct, please Jackie or any other officer correct me this, it will be the 26th of April, and it will be all about Grenfell. It will include the Grenfell recovery. It will include Grenfell issues and a themed meeting for Grenfell bereaved families and survivors. So both lead members will be inviting both lead members, and I'm sure Councillor Kim Charlie Smith, if he's still here, he can hear us. And we will also invite Councillor Anne Saran to come back to us, and it will be all about Grenfell. Since we have been doing a themed scrutiny sessions, that will be all things Grenfell. And then following that will be the date that I've just mentioned, the 24th of May, where we will have a look back of a year of scrutiny under COVID-19 restrictions, and hopefully to see what has worked and what needs to be improved. And if there's anything else, I wish to thank you all, and thank you very much for taking the time, especially officers who have been working behind the scenes, and the food bank leaders who have been here with us all this evening, and the support that they have been providing. And I have mentioned earlier Marcus Rashford, but someone else that also needs to be mentioned and thank his time that the food bank has been supporting the food banks is Russell Brown, and I've been following on Twitter, and he's been really great, and celebrities like him to support people who are in need, and this hour of need will be remembered. So Russell Brown, thank you for the work you've been doing, and all other people who have been supporting our communities we will forever be grateful to you and to families what you have been doing. So thank you, and have a wonderful night, all of you. Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.